There was a time when survival depended not on comfort or wealth, but on the ability to adapt to an environment that offered very little margin for error. In the colder regions of Eastern Europe, where winters stretched for months and resources were often unpredictable, people learned to rely on what could be preserved, reused, and trusted over time. Food needed to last, water was not always safe to drink, and the line between necessity and innovation was often blurred. It was in these conditions that a simple but highly effective solution began to take shape: a clear, strong liquid that could be stored, transported, and used in multiple ways. That liquid would eventually become known as vodka. Today, vodka is one of the most widely consumed spirits in the world, associated with purity, minimalism, and, in many cases, luxury. It appears in high-end bars, nightclubs, and global brands, often marketed as something refined and modern. However, its origins reveal a very different purpose. Vodka was not created for enjoyment or status. It was created because it was useful, reliable, and, in many cases, necessary for survival. The exact origin of vodka remains a subject of debate, with both Russia and Poland presenting historical claims to its creation. Records from both regions indicate that forms of distilled alcohol were present as early as the early medieval period, but what we recognize as vodka today began to emerge around the 14th century, when distillation techniques became more consistent and accessible. The name itself reflects its simplicity. Derived from the word voda, meaning water, vodka was never positioned as something exotic or rare. It was familiar, integrated into daily life, and treated as a practical substance rather than a luxury product. In its earliest applications, vodka was not consumed in the recreational sense that we understand today. It functioned primarily as a medicinal and utilitarian liquid. It was used as a disinfectant, as a treatment for various ailments, and as a safer alternative in environments where clean drinking water could not always be guaranteed. Its ability to be stored without spoiling made it particularly valuable, and over time, people began to recognize that it had effects beyond its practical uses. It did not simply preserve, it altered perception, mood, and behavior, even if only temporarily. The development of vodka production in medieval Russia was closely connected to monasteries, which served as centers of knowledge and experimentation. Monks had the time and resources to refine fermentation and distillation processes, gradually improving consistency and quality. While early versions of vodka were far from the clean, neutral spirit known today, they represented an important step towards standardization. These early distillates were often harsh, retaining strong characteristics of their base ingredients, but they were replicable, and that reliability allowed production to expand beyond isolated environments. By the 15th century, vodka had moved out of monastic settings and into broader society, where it began to take on a new role. It was no longer just a tool or a remedy, it became a commodity. And once something becomes a commodity, it inevitably becomes part of a larger system. In Russia, the state quickly recognized the economic potential of vodka and began to regulate its production and distribution. Taverns were established, licenses were issued, and in certain periods the government maintained direct control over sales. Vodka was transformed into a significant source of revenue, at times contributing a substantial portion of the state's income. This created a complex relationship between the government and the population. On one hand, vodka consumption was encouraged because it generated revenue. On the other, excessive consumption produced visible social consequences. As vodka became more accessible, its use increased across all levels of society, and with that increase came patterns of overconsumption, particularly among lower-income groups where it was cheap and widely available. Authorities attempted to manage this through regulation, adjusting prices, limiting availability, and occasionally introducing restrictions. However, these measures rarely addressed the underlying dynamic, and the pattern of expansion followed by control repeated itself over time. One of the most significant attempts to control vodka consumption occurred during World War I, when Tsar Nicholas II implemented a prohibition on vodka sales in an effort to maintain order and productivity. While the policy initially appeared effective, it also led to unintended consequences, including the rise of illegal production and the expansion of black markets. Demand did not disappear, it adapted, demonstrating that once a substance becomes embedded in daily life, it cannot easily be removed through regulation alone. In Poland, vodka developed along a somewhat different trajectory. Production remained more decentralized for a longer period, often taking place within noble estates that used local ingredients and techniques. This resulted in a wider variety of products, including flavored vodkas infused with herbs, fruits, and spices. Polish vodka culture emphasized craftsmanship and diversity, in contrast to the increasing standardization seen in Russia. These differences would later influence how vodka was positioned in international markets, where variation and identity could be leveraged in different ways. By the 18th and 19th centuries, advancements in distillation technology began to significantly alter the nature of vodka itself. Improved equipment allowed for higher levels of purity, while filtration methods, particularly those involving charcoal, removed unwanted compounds and softened the overall profile of the spirit. The objective became increasingly clear: eliminate impurities, reduce flavor intensity, and create a consistent, neutral product. Around this time, the standard alcohol content of vodka was established at approximately 40%, a level that balanced stability, taste, and efficiency in production. This standardization was critical in enabling vodka to expand beyond its regional origins. For centuries, it had remained largely confined to Eastern Europe, lacking the distinctive characteristics that helped other spirits, such as wine or whiskey, gain international recognition. Vodka did not rely on aging, complex flavor profiles, or strong cultural narratives, and as a result, it attracted less attention in foreign markets. However, the conditions that would eventually support its global spread were beginning to form. The early 20th century marked a turning point, driven not by changes in the product itself, but by historical events that reshaped populations and markets. The Russian Revolution forced many individuals to leave the country, including those involved in vodka production. These immigrants brought their knowledge and techniques with them, reintroducing vodka in new environments. In Europe and later in the United States, vodka began to appear in contexts where it had previously been unknown. Its adoption in the United States was initially limited by prohibition, which restricted alcohol consumption until 1933. However, once prohibition ended, the market reopened, and vodka entered at a moment when consumers were open to new products. Its defining characteristic, neutrality, became a key advantage. Unlike other spirits with strong, distinctive flavors, vodka could be easily incorporated into cocktails without dominating them. This made it highly versatile and adaptable to different tastes and preferences. The rise of vodka in the mid-20th century was closely tied to its role in cocktail culture. Drinks such as the Moscow Mule played a significant role in introducing vodka to a broader audience, not just as a standalone spirit, but as a component of a larger experience.
Marketing efforts emphasized its smoothness, its lack of harshness, and its ability to blend seamlessly with other ingredients. Over time, vodka established itself as a modern, flexible alternative to more traditional spirits. As its popularity increased, its image continued to evolve. By the latter half of the 20th century, vodka had become associated with modernity, minimalism, and sophistication. Branding shifted toward clean designs, clear bottles, and messaging that emphasized purity and refinement. Premium brands emerged, positioning vodka as a high-end product, while large-scale production ensured that it remained accessible to a wide audience. This combination of exclusivity and availability contributed significantly to its global success. Today, vodka is produced in numerous countries using a variety of base ingredients, including wheat, rye, potatoes, and even grapes. While production methods may vary, the underlying principle remains consistent. Remove as many impurities and flavor compounds as possible to create a clean, neutral spirit. Unlike other alcoholic beverages that derive their identity from complexity, vodka is defined by simplicity. However, its significance extends beyond its composition. Vodka's history reflects a broader pattern of transformation shaped by cultural, economic, and political forces. At different points in time, it has represented survival, revenue, excess, regulation, and opportunity. Its meaning has shifted depending on context, adapting to the needs and perceptions of the societies that consume it. In its earliest form, vodka was a practical solution to environmental challenges. As it became integrated into economic systems, it transformed into a source of revenue and control. As consumption increased, it became associated with social issues and attempts at regulation. With its expansion into global markets, it evolved into a symbol of adaptability and modernity. Each of these phases contributed to its current identity, not as a fixed concept, but as something fluid and responsive. What makes vodka particularly unique is its ability to exist within different cultural frameworks without losing its core characteristics. It does not impose a strong identity of its own, which allows it to take on the identity of its surroundings. In one context, it may represent tradition and heritage. In another, it may symbolize nightlife and contemporary culture. In yet another, it may be positioned as a luxury product. This adaptability is central to its success. Unlike products that rely on a single narrative or identity, vodka can move between different roles without contradiction. It can be both simple and sophisticated, both common and exclusive. This flexibility allows it to remain relevant across different markets and time periods. Ultimately, vodka is not defined by what it adds, but by what it removes. Its production process is focused on elimination of impurities, of strong flavors, of anything that might interfere with its neutrality. What remains is something intentionally minimal, a product that does not demand attention, but instead integrates seamlessly into its environment. And it is precisely this absence of dominance that has allowed vodka to become one of the most widespread and enduring spirits in the world. In a landscape where many products compete for distinction through complexity and intensity, vodka succeeds by offering the opposite: clarity, simplicity, and adaptability. In the end, the story of vodka is not just about a drink. It is about how something simple can evolve into something global, how a practical solution can become a cultural phenomenon, and how identity can be shaped not only by what something is, but by what it chooses not to be. Because sometimes, the most powerful things are not the ones that stand out the most, but the ones that can exist anywhere, adapt to anything, and remain consistent through change. That is what vodka became.